recorded webinar on Optimum Nutrition during pregnancy. My name is Rosie Letts. I'm a nutritional therapist and functional medicine practitioner. So firstly, if you are pregnant, then you are your baby's world, and only you have the power to shape and influence it. What you choose to eat during pregnancy has a profound effect on the health and development of your baby for his or her whole life. It's well understood that the quality of a mother's diet before she conceives and during pregnancy improves her baby's resilience to degenerative diseases and infection throughout their lives. Whilst we cannot control the genes that we inherit, we can control the way that they are expressed. What you eat, where you live, who you interact with, when you sleep, and how you exercise all eventually cause chemical modifications which turn your genes on or off over time. This is the science of epigenetics. Different combinations of genes that are turned on or off is what makes each one of us unique. Epigenetics research shows that eating a nutritious diet during pregnancy and breastfeeding can produce positive changes to your baby's physiology and gene expression. The period from conception to around 6 months is the most vulnerable time in a child's life. And this is the period when their gene expression becomes the most malleable to change. As such, this renders it the perfect opportunity to take control over the future health of your baby. So now we understand that eating well is important for your baby as well as for you during pregnancy. Let's look at some of the simple habits which you can adopt, which will have a big long-term impact. Learning to eat in a way that keeps your blood sugar balanced is vital for good health for everyone. During pregnancy, your increased blood supply and elevated levels of certain hormones mean that you're more likely to experience dips in blood sugar, and that balance is harder to achieve. Did you know that your body can only cope with 2 teaspoons of sugar in your blood at any one time? If you overload on sugar, your body protects itself by releasing the hormone insulin, which pulls excess glucose back out from the blood. This results in a rapid drop of blood sugar that causes cravings for sweet, carbohydrate-rich foods. The same thing applies when we skip meals. When our blood sugar levels fluctuate like this, we are much more likely to succumb to mood swings, irritability, and even depression. Another hormone that is released when your blood sugar drops is cortisol, and cortisol makes us feel anxious and tense. Babies that are born to mothers with poor blood sugar control are often bigger. Macrosomia is a condition in which babies grow excessively large due to a continuously high level of maternal blood sugar. This condition increases the risk of delivery complications such as shoulder dystocia and cesarean section. Large babies of mothers with elevated blood sugar levels have a higher risk of childhood obesity and developing other health conditions later on in childhood. Your midwife will monitor your blood sugar levels carefully during the 3rd trimester as gestational diabetes is becoming more and more of a problem. So how can we control your blood sugar? Well, the first thing that you can do is to eat little and often. Every 2 to 3 hours is ideal. And you might find, certainly at the beginning of your pregnancy, when you're suffering from a little bit of morning sickness, actually eating little and often will be really, really helpful for preventing the sickness. And that's all to do with blood sugar control as well. The second thing that we can do is we can combine carbohydrates with proteins and healthy fats. And that combining the different macronutrients helps slow the release of sugar into the bloodstream. So for example, if you were to eat a cookie on its own, it's quite a lot of sugar in a cookie, and the sugar is released quite quickly into your bloodstream, which causes a big rapid spike in your blood sugar. Whereas if you were to eat the same cookie, but you were to have it with plenty of nuts and seeds with protein and healthy fat, whilst the level of sugar that you're eating is the same, it is released into your blood much more slowly, and so you don't experience the same blood sugar fluctuation. The third thing we can do is try to avoid stimulants and stress. I know this can be easier said than done, but avoiding kind of tea and coffee, trying to avoid stressful situations, potentially doing some breath work and using yoga and other techniques to keep your stress levels as low as possible will really help with your blood sugar control. Eat fruit in its whole form rather than juicing. So when we juice fruit, all the fibre is stripped away and we're just left with the nutrients, but also a lot of sugar, and the release is very fast into the bloodstream. So eating whole fruit is best during pregnancy. And the final thing we can do is look at ways to replace refined sugar with healthier alternatives. So these are some of my favourite alternatives to refined sugar. You can find this list on a resource on my website. So coconut palm sugar offers more vitamins and minerals than white sugar, and it also has a lower glycemic index, which means that it won't spike your blood sugar levels as much. 100% maple syrup contains lots of minerals like iron and zinc and magnesium and potassium. And these minerals are part of what the body uses to actually convert that sugar into energy. So it's very important when we are having sugar to have plenty of these minerals as well. It also has a much lower GI than cane sugar. Honey, preferably raw, is rich in both vitamins and nutrients. Raw honey is ideal because it still contains the beneficial bacteria and the antiviral properties. So when honey is pasteurized, it loses some of its beneficial properties. Medjool dates work particularly well in cooking and in baking, and you'll see I use lots of dates and dried fruit in my recipes. And then we've also got stevia. Stevia is very, very sweet, so you only need a very, very small amount. But again, it works really well in baking. Okay, so shopping carefully. I'm really a big fan of this. By rethinking the way that you do your weekly shop, you can really maximize the nutritional value of the food that you eat. So where possible, I'd encourage you to buy locally grown produce, as it will be fresher and it will have a much higher nutrient content than food that has been kind of flown halfway across the globe. Local produce from farmers markets also tends to be cheaper than supermarkets. So have a think about whether there is local produce that you can buy. Maybe you can get a vegetable box, or you can go to a more local shop where you know that they take care of where they're sourcing food. If you're able to buy organic produce, you'll gain more antioxidants, and you'll also avoid the pesticides. If you can't buy everything organically locally, then you should prioritize the dirty dozen. So again, if you head to my website, there is under resources, you can download a PDF which shows you which vegetables and fruits to really prioritize buying organic, which it doesn't matter so much because it's not always possible to get everything organic. I understand that. And taking care over the quality of the meat that you're buying and the animal produce as well. So grass-fed animals are generally better quality. They don't have the same haven't had the same pesticide use on their foods, and different kind of hormone ratios as well. So also grass-fed animals tend to have more access to sunlight. They have better fat ratios, and therefore they are richer in more fat-soluble vitamins. There's also an ethics issue here. So just take a little bit of time to see how you can improve the quality of the food that you're already eating. Most people do not get sufficient micronutrients in their diets. In fact, the most recent UK National Diet and Nutrition Survey showed that 9 in 10 women did not meet their lower reference nutrient intake for nutrients like magnesium, iodine, zinc, calcium, vitamin A, or iron. While supplements have their place, eating a colourful, varied diet is definitely the most effective way to increase your micronutrient consumption. And during pregnancy, there really never has been a more important time to do this. So here are my tips to help you do exactly that. Firstly, eat the rainbow. So the colours in fruit and vegetables represent over 25,000 different phytonutrients, which when consumed stimulate enzymes in the body to support every single one of your health systems. And it's actually the pigments, the colours in the fruit and vegetables, which indicate the different families of healing chemicals that they contain. So back in hunter-gatherer times, we would have eaten hundreds of varieties of fruit and vegetables. But now we have kind of selectively bred the fruit and vegetables, and so the colours are much, much more limited. So really have a think about how you can pack more colour onto your plate, and I'd encourage you, over the course of the day to make sure that you're trying to eat the rainbow. So let's talk about eating well throughout the 3 trimesters. Your baby's nutrition requirements change as you progress through the 3 trimesters. So I just want to run you through some simple changes that you can make in order to ensure that you hit your nutrition targets throughout your pregnancy. So during the first 12 weeks of pregnancy, your baby is reliant on the neutral status of your yolk sac. The placenta takes over at 12 weeks, at which point nutrients can be extracted from your blood supply to meet the baby's demands. The quality of your placenta is dependent on your nutritional status pre-conception and your diet during the first trimester. So a healthy placenta will optimize the exchange of nutrients and oxygen for the duration of your pregnancy. So first trimester nutrition. Don't eat more food, just eat better quality food. So you actually really don't need to eat more calories at all, because your body becomes much, much more efficient at using the calories in food. Focus on good quality protein. Protein is hugely important throughout pregnancy, but particularly in the first trimester. If you're eating meat and eggs, that's great. If they don't seem appealing, which often they don't in the first trimester with morning sickness, try more plant-based proteins. So things like beans and pulses, things like quinoa, nuts and seeds. Some women enjoy natural yogurt, cold natural yogurt during the first trimester. So really focus on protein. Eat little and often. So we touched on that in the blood sugar balance section. Really, really important during the first trimester to keep your blood sugars stable and to minimize the sickness. But also when you're eating little and often you'll put more care and attention into what's going into those little mini meals as well. Standard weight gain is around 2 to 5 pounds during the first trimester. Some women worry that they don't put on enough weight, or they don't really put on any weight, particularly if you're feeling sick. Don't be concerned about that, as long as you're just trying to do what you can to get the nutrition inside you. So managing morning sickness. Morning sickness is complex. We attribute the majority of the sensations to changing levels of hormones, to blood sugar dips, and sometimes to nutritional deficiencies as well. So to kind of curb the nausea, ginger. Ginger is amazing for its anti-sickness properties. Lots of women will find that drinking fresh ginger tea or ginger tea bags will really help. Keep hydrated. This is so important. It's really easy to become dehydrated during the first trimester. Your water requirements just increase hugely, but also if you are being sick, you will be losing a lot of fluids. If you are being sick, try to replenish your body with isotonic drink, something like coconut water or a sort of natural sports drink to replace those lost electrolytes. Try to sleep well. You need a lot more sleep during the first trimester than you did before pregnancy. Again, I know it's easier said than done, but taking the time that you can to rest and rejuvenate, and even if you're not sleeping, plenty of time kind of reading and relaxing will really help with your energy levels. If you're taking a multivitamin, which is sensible, make sure you take it with food. So if you take vitamins on an empty stomach, they can really exacerbate sickness because the vitamins can overwhelm your digestive system. So make sure you always take your supplements with food. Avoid fatty and spicy foods. It's a challenging time for your digestive system, and fatty foods can be really difficult to digest. Spicy foods can cause some reflux symptoms. And if you are struggling, and some women really do, I'd highly encourage you to visit a properly qualified nutritional therapist, such as myself. So second trimester nutrition then. First of all, we need to work on increasing protein again and calcium. So during the second trimester, this is kind of rapid development stage, and we want to make sure that all the building blocks are there to grow your baby's tissues and their bone structure. You will need around 200 extra calories at this time. That's not a huge amount of calories, so make them count would be my advice. Make sure that, you know, that those extra calories that you're eating are as nutrient dense as possible, and they're providing as many of the nutrients that you know you are going to need more of as possible. Your blood volume increases steadily, and so your iron requirements will increase. A lot of women start to suffer from iron deficiency anemia at this time. If you are struggling, I'd again recommend that you head to my website. There's an article about anemia in pregnancy with some really good tips on how to increase iron if you're a vegetarian, how to get more iron in your diet, and also iron supplementation if necessary as well. So standard weight gain is around £1 pound a week at this point. Third trimester nutrition. So focus now, and we're still trying to do, you know, the same things as staying well hydrated, eating enough protein, eating enough calcium. But at this point, the balance of fats that you're eating becomes so important. So many of you may have heard of an essential fat called DHA. It's an omega-3 fat. It comes largely from fish. There are a couple of vegan sources, but they're not as good. So the DHA fat is a huge component of both baby's brain and heart, and plays lots and lots of vital roles in the body. Now, many of us really don't eat enough fish, and many of us haven't eaten enough fish for most of our lives, and so our kind of fatty acid ratios are not as they should be. So for most women, I would, you know, unless you're eating plenty of fish and you've been eating plenty of fish for a long time, I'd recommend at this point taking an omega-3 supplement, fish oil supplement. And again, feel free to drop me a line and I can give you my thoughts on the best supplement to include. If you are vegan, there are vegan DHA supplements available as well. We get the DHA from algae, which incidentally is where the fish get their DHA from. So watch your sugar intake. It's really easy at this point to start eating too much sugar, and the risk obviously is developing gestational diabetes, which leads on to lots and lots of pregnancy complications. So really be careful not to overdo the sugar, trying to, again, you know, going back to those natural alternatives to refined sugar, but also trying to sort of satiate the sweet tooth with as little sugar as possible. Eat fermented foods or take a probiotic. I could talk for hours about the microbiome. That's the beneficial bacteria that reside within your gut. Now, the important takeaway here is that when your baby's born, during the birth process and then during breastfeeding, you will pass on your beneficial bacteria profile to your baby. And that bacteria is so important for digestion, for producing neurochemicals, for playing all sorts of different roles in the body for you as an adult, but also for your baby. And one of the best ways that you can make your microbiome as healthy as it can possibly be is taking a good probiotic supplement and eating fermented foods. So a lot of people have never really even encountered fermented foods. These are things like kombucha, kefir, sauerkraut, miso, kimchi. All traditional diets all around the world have fermented foods as an important part of their nutrient intake, and it's only as diets have modernized and as we've westernized that we've lost those traditional elements. So it's important to bring those back and eat foods that contain naturally occurring live bacteria. Natural yogurt's another good one, which probably more people have had in the past. So standard weight gain during the third trimester is around £1 a week. Obviously, that really varies from woman to woman. So a quick check. These are sort of superfoods that I would recommend definitely including during your pregnancy. Oily fish, without a doubt, so important. Oily fish are salmon, mackerel, sardines, anchovies and herring. So it doesn't matter how you're getting them. It doesn't matter if they're canned or if they're fresh or if they're frozen, but if you can try and think of ways to get more oily fish into your diet, that's wonderful. Otherwise, definitely take an omega-3 supplement. Lentils. So lentils are an amazing source of protein and they support your beneficial bacteria levels, but they're also a great source of iron and folate. And these are two nutrients that are typically really quite depleted during pregnancy. Baobab is a powder, which it's a powdered fruit. You can put it in smoothies, you can put it in desserts. It's an amazing source of iron, a really good source of vitamin C and antioxidants as well. So that's, again, it's a really good vegan iron source. Eggs, you don't need to worry about eggs. The rules around eggs have changed, so as long as eggs are cooked properly, they're absolutely fine. They're a great source of choline, vitamin B12, protein, selenium and iodine. Green leafy vegetables, really important at any time of life, but particularly in pregnancy. If you don't find green leafy vegetables very palatable, which at particular times in pregnancy, often people can really go off them. Think about how you can kind of smuggle them in. So maybe you can pop spinach in a smoothie, maybe you can make kale crisps, maybe you can do some juicing, but predominantly with vegetables and just a little bit of fruit to stop that sugar spike, but try and get them in wherever you can. Dried fruit in general, particularly dried apricots. And so if you head to my website, there's lots of really nice snack recipes for balancing blood sugar. So things like energy balls and flapjacks, and I use dried apricots fairly heavily just because they're such an amazing pregnancy food. And then quinoa. Quinoa acts as a grain, but it's actually a seed, so it's much higher in protein and much higher in certain nutrients as well. I really hope you've enjoyed the webinar. I hope you found some useful information. I have a pregnancy nutrition guide, which goes into a bit more depth on many of the topics that we've touched upon. And also because it's a downloadable PDF guide, you can use it as a resource to refer back to. So I'd really recommend going to my website and downloading the guide for your reference. And if you want to really take nutrition a bit more seriously during your pregnancy, if you're interested in finding out a lot more and developing a way of eating that works for you during pregnancy, but also postnatally, then I'd really, really recommend that you look at my Reinvent online program, which again, all the information is on the website. I designed Reinvent with fertility and pregnancy in mind, and it's basically a program that works you through all the really important aspects of eating well, but it does it one step at a time so that you always have a focus, but you never feel overwhelmed, and it's quite a manageable way of really making some great long-term changes to your diet. The program includes over 250 recipes, 12 meal plans, so if you are feeling tired or lazy or uninspired, you can literally just download the meal plans. There's a shopping list for a week and kind of go, no thinking required. And we also look at the psychological side of things, so there's some breathing exercises and meditation, loads of resources that will really help you at this time. So do go and check that out. If you want to work more on a more one-to-one basis, do please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. I'm really happy to answer them.